Management Today put her in the top 35 under 35 list of female leaders in the UK. She is an author, an entrepreneur, and her most recent book is The $1 Million Blog. Natasha Courtenay-Smith, welcome to LeadersIn.
Hello, hello.
Great to have you with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
So rather than just delving straight into the book today, maybe we just start a little bit about your background. So,
Yeah.
if I can understand, you started in a huge company, the Daily Mail. How did you find that? What were you doing there?
So I was a feature writer at the Daily Mail, and I wrote a lot of features. So I was one of the many people working there, generating content, writing news and human interest features every day.
And that's where you found your love of writing, or was it before that?
No, I've actually always been a very good writer. I have to say, I was always a natural writer and able to write very fast. When I was at the Daily Mail, I actually just went in to cover for a few shifts, and this is, as is often the case, the Daily Mail, you never leave the building ever again, basically. That's how a lot of people end up working there.
Okay.
I'd previously been working in magazines.
So why did you end up leaving? I mean, the Daily Mail is it's a great company. I'm sure you would have been on a career path. What?
I know I would have been on a career path, but I think it's like any big corporation where I felt that the career path at the Daily Mail is a very long career path, and I'd have to possibly be there for 10 years, 20 years in order to be one of the star writers. You know, all newspapers have its star writers, which is where I wanted to be. Yeah. And I felt that it was going to take a long time, and I didn't want to do that. And also inside myself, I started thinking about setting up my own business. Yeah.
Let's just put ourselves in the shoes of big companies. So you're CEO or head of talent for a big organisation like the Daily Mail. Any thoughts on how they can retain their future stuff?
I suppose maybe give you a bit more hope earlier on, throw you through a few more bones, give you a few more reviews, lay out to you, actually, this is the path that could open for you if you stay. Yeah. I mean, plenty of my peers have stayed at the Daily Mail and have good careers there and are now section editors and associate editors of the entire paper. But I think also inside me, both my parents ran their own business together, and I think I did think that I should be setting up my own business.
So was there lots of rows at home as you were growing up about the sort of the business and which direction it should be? Or was that was
I can't really remember, to be honest. I know they grew their business quite big, and they had, they had plenty of people. They had lots of people working for them, and it did really, really well.
Okay, so you were brought up in an environment that was very much sort of entrepreneurship, startup.
Yes, but actually, I don't know. I mean, at the time, you don't realise it, do you? A lot of people say, "Oh, my parents are entrepreneurs," and they drummed it into me that you must do this. And that's certainly not the case for me. But they ran their own business. It was successful. I didn't know what entrepreneurship was, but I guess I saw them making their own way. Yeah,
amazing. So let's talk about this bug that you had in 2008. You actually started your own company and talking to the press. Where did you come up with that idea?
So things have slightly changed because the newspaper landscape has changed so much. But at the time, it's all papers want is exclusive content, and they have large sums of money to buy exclusive stories. And it was believed, I don't know if this is still the case, but whoever has the best exclusive story on their front page sells more copies that weekend. So I could see the papers were spending huge amounts of money on exclusive content. So I thought if I could find some way. That's one part of it. The other part of it was that I initially went freelance, and then as a freelance journalist, you have to have stories to pitch. And getting a story is probably the most difficult part of the job. You know, where do you go to get a story? If you're not someone like, and I wasn't someone who wanted to go knocking on doors or making cold calls, how do you get a story? So I thought if I set up a website call it Talk to the Press, maybe there might be one or two people out there who might have a story and might contact me. And that was really it. I set up the website, and it transpired there were lots and lots of people out there with stories. Yeah. And the website became a lead generator of exclusive content, which we were then able to sell for high prices, international newspapers and television shows.
Phenomenal.
So I didn't really foresee it. I do think I'm more of an accidental entrepreneur than a planned entrepreneur. I didn't really see. I didn't really foresee that would happen. But as it happened, it was 2008. I was one of the first people to put up a website like that. At the same time, people were starting to Google. Well, they were Googling a lot, and the two worlds collided. Yeah.
So doing something that's an extension of your current industry has certainly worked for you.
I think it works for lots of people. I think a lot of people. It's a very typical entrepreneur's path, isn't it? Like, suppose you work in the bread section at Sainsbury's, and then you then set up a bakery.
That's
And
true.
I think it's a very typical entrepreneur's path, and probably the one that's easiest to get started in.
That's right. Because sort of then you get that intuitive feel because you've been in it for...
You understand the industry, you also have a few contacts. I mean, I had contacts at the Daily Mail. Actually, in order to build that business, we needed to be selling to everyone. We can't just become a kind of exclusive supplier to the Daily Mail. That doesn't have scale. But because I was known as a journalist, I'd had hundreds of bylines in the Daily Mail, I was then able to phone other editors at other papers say what I was doing. And they'd probably at least agree to kind of meet with me and give me 5 minutes.
Yeah, so that's just smart. It's leveraging the assets, what you know and who you know, taking those two things and then launching the business from that. Very good. And then by the way, how did you find it going from a huge company to a small company where you're the paper jam fixer and you're the head of IT?
My whole life was fixing printers. It really was. How do you know about the paper jam? I cannot tell you how much time I've spent fixing printers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I found it... It's just like with the whole thing, you sort of realise retrospectively what you've done. So what happened was I set up this website. Talk to the Press was a good name. It's called Talk to the Press. It's a company that exists today. I was able to get on BBC Breakfast as this new business has launched. And from that, we were just absolutely inundated. So I straight away had to take on a small team. But and then retrospectively sort of get the admin sorted, i.e. do I even have enough computers in this office? Like, no, there's not even enough computers. People bring their own computers and then have to go out and buy some computers. So I would probably say in the beginning I was quite chaotic about it.
But you see, I think that's really great because a lot of people think they've got to have all these steps lined up before they take the leap.
And they think about things like whether you're a limited company or not, or you're a sole trader. Actually, the way it started was as a sole trader because I was just freelancing, and then I got on BBC Breakfast. I set up a website which happened to have a great name, got on BBC Breakfast. You can deal with all that admin stuff afterwards. Yeah. You can incorporate the limited company afterwards.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Or focus on the right things.
Yeah.
So what would you say if you've got one piece of, having been through that and successfully exiting the business, what would you say is your one piece of advice for one of those entrepreneurs that are running around chasing the tails, chasing the paper jam fixing,
I always just say, do you mean in a business like that?
Yeah, to a founder who's currently, got a business idea and they're doing admin operations, and just sort of number one piece of entrepreneurial
I think the one thing
advice.
I always say is focus on the sale first. Like, you don't really need to worry about the admin or the logistics or anything. You actually need to worry about getting cash in. You see so many people who are agonising over how they're going to set up, where it's going to be based. I always try and go straight for the sale, because once you've got cash flow coming in, then everything, you can deal with everything else.
That's right.
And then, I mean, everybody I employed to talk to the press, they were all graduates. They were all trained by me. A lot of them are now really high flying in the newspaper industry. Most of them would stay with me for say 2 to 3 years. So then that's about having a good team and young people who are enthusiastic, and they can get promoted really quickly in a small business, and that, they can go from being the intern to being the a features editor or something, and that brings great loyalty with it.
Focusing on the cash, because you get the cash, you can then do everything else, and movements and and the idea and the contacts, and just thinking smart. So having exited the business, as soon as you sold the business, did you then just relax underneath the coconut palm trees for a while, or what are you doing now?
No, I think I totally freaked out after I sold the business. So
did you? Well, in the sense that somebody else is going to take control?
No, just in the sense of knowing what to do. So I was one of those saddos who kind of kept going to the office, even though, because you're in such a habit of going there. So I had my team in my office, and then they moved to a different office, but I was still left with the office for a while until I could deal with exiting, like getting rid of the lease. So I would still go in there, even though it was sort of empty, with empty chairs next to me, and I became very fixated on what I was going to do next, and I should have taken a break.
Right. Okay.
But I felt quite I don't know, sort of, I felt like I must have a plan, whereas in reality I didn't need to have a plan and probably shouldn't have worried so much. So I didn't go and sunbathe under some palm trees or anything.
Natasha, you started your own company, so and you've been through it, you've successfully exited the business. Having been through it and having worked at large organisations, do you think that everybody can just go and launch a business, or does it take a certain type of mindset or person?
That's a very interesting question. I think what I find fascinating about this world of entrepreneurship is it's now a thing to be an entrepreneur, and it's something people can study, and there's a whole raft of young people saying, I want to be an entrepreneur, which is completely amazing and brilliant. I feel that's really changed a lot since even 2008, when I started my business, which wasn't that long ago, when, I mean, maybe this was just me being completely clueless, but I had no idea I was being an entrepreneur. You're just sort of trying to get going as an independent person, and then you get busy, so you take on some people, and then next thing you know, you have a business.
Yeah.
So, and in hindsight, you then realise, oh, this is what entrepreneurship is, and maybe I'm an entrepreneur, and maybe I should learn and study some skills. So I think, with regard to the question, we now live in a really different era in which people recognise entrepreneurship as a thing, and people have that as an ambition, and absolutely it can be learned and taught like anything else.
Yeah, that's right.
So people can, and there's young people studying entrepreneurship and wanting to be entrepreneurs, which is brilliant. And what I love about it is the idea that they use the word entrepreneur and just have in their mind they're going to do anything that's going to be an entrepreneur. They're not sort of thinking, oh, like the way I did, which was I'm working at a newspaper, so now I'm going to start a press agency. The kind of very straight journey. They're thinking, and I can be anything.
Yeah, that's right.
And the same skills apply, which I think is a really brilliant and positive thing.
Yeah, I suppose it's because companies like the Facebook and the social network shows Mark Zuckerberg just literally thinking, I want to be able to do this, and then they solve that problem.
Whole online revolution, which is. And Seth Godin talks about it a lot, how we live in this amazing era where you can just, anyone with a laptop can just make money, and you can just get started, which is true. But also at the same time, a lot of businesses really do require a lot of money. Say if you want to open a restaurant or you want to open a shop, that's not something you can just sit at home and do from your laptop necessarily. That's
right. Do you think it takes, if somebody's listening to this thinking, I love what Natasha's saying, I'm sitting in a big company, thousands of employees, nobody's really recognised me, but I've got mortgages.
Like I was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but you've got real bills to pay. Yeah. They're not virtual bills, they're real bills. And you think, I want to go and launch my own company, but it's a big leap of faith to take. Should they do it on the side in the evening to sort of pursue it as a hobby first?
I definitely think there's ways around it. I mean, at the time I left the Daily Mail, I didn't have those sorts of commitments, but I definitely didn't have much money. I only had £5,000, and I was, rent in London, I think it was like £1,100 a month or something to pay for my rent in this flat I was living in with a friend. So it wasn't a real crisis. I'm going to got a house and I've got kids to feed, but at the same time you're under financial pressure. Yeah. So I remember it was a really scary decision and feeling absolutely terrified about whether it was going to work out or not. And then your mind goes to the worst case scenario. What if it doesn't work out? And, this is going to be a disaster. And then I'm just going to run out of money and I'm going to be homeless and I'm living on the streets. And you go through this catastrophic thinking. Yeah. So I would say if you've got real financial commitments, you'd have to try and start something on the side.
Yeah, that's right. Test it as a prototype and then go from there. Yeah.
And it's a shame that, people do get hemmed in by their jobs and by their lives. But if they're older and they're at a point they've got mortgages and children, they might also be at a point where they've got some savings that they could use as well. I mean, my £5,000, which I know doesn't sound very much now, but it was like, to me, age 29, that was represented, or maybe I was 28, but it represented everything I'd saved. Basically, it was my life savings. Yeah. And I felt like I was quite rich with £5,000.
That's right. Well, it's a huge investment, the £5,000, but it's certainly paid off. So well done. In your book, actually, which we're going to talk about now, but you talk about how to create a personal brand mission statement. Yeah. Just give us a quick overview on.
So that's something that I see as being a shortcut to a personal brand. So when I was building Talk to the Press, I very much led it. Journalists have a bad reputation, don't they? And no one trusts journalists, actually even less so now, but it was the same then. And I thought, if I can build myself as a nice, honest, kind person, if I can build myself into the fabric of the company, which is personal branding, then I can build the integrity of the company, because if I put myself at the front of it and people will realise that I'm a nice, decent, trustworthy person, then that enhances the brand of the company. So that's when how I first started learning about personal branding. But in terms of the mission statement, nowadays people realise that it helps. Look at Branson and Dyson, how they lead their companies, and their personal, how well they are known, their profiles enhances their company. Yeah. But it can be quite difficult to do. So I think having a mission statement, a statement that's bigger than you, just helps you be more memorable and stand out. So for instance, for me, it might be, I want to help every business and person become better known for what they do. Now, that's just a mission statement that makes me more memorable. In reality, I'm never going to achieve that. I'm never going to help every person become better known than what they do. But it's still as I lead with the mission statement, just as something that makes you more memorable.
That's right. And it sort of gives you a purpose.
It gives me a purpose, and it means people can instantly understand me. So say you're a personal trainer and you're thinking, if you had a mission statement that's bigger than what you can ever achieve, i.e. I want to help every mum over 35 have the figure that they had when they were 18 or whatever. No personal trainer is going to achieve that because it's impossible. But it means that anyone looking at them thinks, oh yeah, this person means business. Like I understand what this person's about now just from that mission statement. So it's a personal branding shortcut, really.
Perfect. You've obviously written this book, The $1 Million Blog, but we're going to come to that now. But just what else are you doing then? So you're obviously an author, you're a speaker, you've got a consultancy.
Well, really, I'm helping people become better known for what they do, and I work with people from celebrities to charities to small business owners. And really, it's about their online visibility, and it's about their overall visibility. And what I'm bringing is blending the experience I have in the mainstream media, so the publicity side of it, with the experience I have from running an online business, which was Talk to the Press. And if you can get both right, and get people mainstream media coverage and improve their, like through digital marketing, which is such a huge multifaceted world, it drives everybody crazy. But if you can get both balls elevating through a range of techniques, then that person becomes better known for what they do, or the company becomes better known for what they do.
But it's not just aspiring entrepreneurs and business leaders, it's also famous celebrities that you're after.
I have worked with some famous celebrities who are quite well known, but that doesn't mean they have have everything completely covered, or that they understand. Particularly what I find with mainstream celebrities, people we recognise from television, is that they're so used to working in television, they don't really understand the online world. And what they don't want to do is get overtaken by all these online stars who can reach 2 million people, whereas they're still beholden to a commissioning editor to commissioning their program to get visibility. Yeah,
because it says in your book, actually, everybody has to work on their profile all the time, even if you're because obviously Max Clifford, his personal life ended up being a bit of a disaster, but the business itself of going to high celebrities and looking after their profile, is that something that you're potentially wanting to get involved in? Then that's quite a nice niche, I'd have thought.
No, I think my niche is working with people who I know I can help. So that might be, it depends on the celebrity. I wouldn't say I just would work with any celebrity. Different celebrities have different needs, both in terms of traditional media and online media. So I just want to work with people where I can see what their goals are and I know how to do it, and I can get them in mainstream publicity because it fits the mass media background that I have, which is actually extremely tabloidy and magazine-y and mass media. So if a celebrity came to me who wasn't mass media or who didn't want that sort of coverage, if someone came to me and they just wanted to be in The Guardian or The Observer, I would not want to work with them because I'm used to dealing with, now I'm running down The Guardian and Observer, aren't I? But I'm used to getting people into the tabloids, onto mainstream huge programmes. So amazing. So that I'm just interested in working with people who I can help.
Great. Maybe you can help us get on the mainstream as well. That'd be really good. Let's talk about specifically the book. What was, when I first saw it, the $1 Million Blog, it looks fantastic. The content looks great. But obviously, blogging's been around for a long time.
Yeah, it has.
But if you look out there on the world of the internet at the moment, everyone's talking about blogging having a renaissance. So is it tapping into that?
I don't know if blogging's having a renaissance or not. I mean, I suppose I should say it is. No, but what it's tapping into is that blogging is now a viable business model that people understand. So I think what happened is in 2008, around the time I set up Talk to the Press, I was using a content strategy to build that business, although I didn't realise it at the time. You know, you're just doing whatever you feel you have to do to get more visitors to your website. At the same time, there were all sorts of people blogging, and people thought they were weirdos. Like, what's this person doing writing an online diary? You know, this is a strange habit this person's got, and they were sort of ridiculed. What the different landscape we're in now is that, you know, this year there's a beauty blogger who's just got $1 million plus contract with L'Oreal. It's now completely recognised, actually, you know what, this is not some strange thing that people are writing online diaries. This is a viable business model. Okay. So I don't know if you'd call it a resurgence, but I feel it's had a coming of age.
Okay, so it's actually, maybe the difference is you can actually really monetize.
You can really monetize it, plus there's a set of rules that can be followed. So if you're looking at other business models like let's open a pub, there's a set of rules to opening a successful pub. we're no longer in that beginning ground where nobody really knows what they're doing and a few people accidentally get lucky. There's a clear route that the most successful bloggers have taken.
Great, okay.
And I also think what's really interesting in how this book came about is I did a talk last year and it was called How to Turn Your Blog into a Business, and it was absolutely packed. And I think there's a lot of people who are suddenly thinking, do you know what, this blogging malarkey as such can actually provide a great lifestyle. Like, it will enable me, particularly women, it will enable me to work from home. I can work from wherever I want. And when they're looking around, you know, as ever people go through their lives, people think about, oh, do I want to change career? What am I going to do? Yeah. That looks like a really attractive option.
That's right, absolutely. So I met somebody, actually a female graduate, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, who told me, it was a family friend, who said that she was going to become a digital nomad. And I see that you're writing about it in the book. When I heard it, I was like, OMG, I wouldn't want to be their parent. But what you're saying is that, you know, floating around coffee shops, wherever you are, with a laptop and Starbucks, you can genuinely make a career out of that.
There's a lot of people who are doing this digital nomad thing, and there's this extraordinary place in Bali, which is a kind of, I wrote about the book, but it's like a destination where digital nomads, like, they go and live the Bali lifestyle, and then they all go in and they work from a kind of workspace, but it's super cool, like a Soho House type of space. And there's GPs running sort of virtual private practices virtually from in there. I do think the idea of digital nomad is probably a bit forward thinking for a lot of people though. And also it depends what appeals to you. For me, I'm not interested in being a digital nomad because I love being in central London, I love meeting people, and I love bricks and mortar businesses, like when you go into something and it exists. But the appeal for a lot, you can understand the appeal to think you can go from wherever you want and you know, there's a whole movement of people homeschooling their children as they travel the world, through monetizing their blogs about their lifestyles. Yeah,
I'd love to homeschool my kids. I'm just not smart enough, I don't think. Maybe I need to read a blog about it. But
that's how they're making their money.
That's it. Of people like me who need to. Would you? So for people who are thinking this sounds like an amazing career path, and we're going to talk about how big companies, the big corps, can incorporate this as well. But
yes, because there's all these different levels, and I think blogging is quite a wide world, and people get really confused. So the digital nomad life is completely different to a business who might want to just build their online visibility. That's a very different thing.
So what would you say because on LeadersIn.com we have the very aspiring individuals, very aspiring SMEs, but we also have FTSE 100. We ourselves, and former PLCs, are FTSE 100 companies. So talking to the large companies out there, how should they incorporate blogging into their sort of digital mix or marketing mix?
Well, so first of all, whenever we talk about large companies, we have to change our voice and start calling it a content strategy, because that's what people do for no clear reason why at all. Like, it's all the same thing. I'm always like, why are we talking like this? Just because we're talking about a large company, it's completely ridiculous. But it's marketing. Yeah. It's creating content for your own customers. You're not you're only worrying about building enough of an audience to get enough interest into your company at whatever size the company is, or whatever size you want it to be. But you do have to think about how you can make it entertaining and how you can do something different to what is already being done. Yeah. And I think what a lot of companies do wrong, a lot of big companies actually take it really seriously and have content studios, and they employ former journalists like Burberry and Disney. You know, they have a whole the content departments. They treat themselves as a magazine, and that's exactly right. And they're doing all sorts of a mix of content of behind the scenes and interviews with key staff members and anything they can think of, and treating it as an online publication. Right, okay. But that's one side of the coin. They do it well. A lot of others say we must get into blogging, and then they write a blog post, and then they don't really know what to do with it. They publish it, and then they don't write another blog post for about a year.
I know, and sometimes the blog posts can be, you know, come and buy our product. I mean, it's not.
Well, they write a blog post with a sense of urgency. So this is the difference between kind of evergreen content, which is really valuable because you can use it again and again and again. Yeah. And live content. So it's always easy to do live content because there's always that sense of urgency. Like, someone will say, "Hey, we've got an event next week. Write a blog post about it. We need to sell tickets." So everyone's like thinking we need to sell these tickets and frantically writes a blog post because this thing's coming up.
Right.
But that's the wrong focus, because actually a good content strategy would be mostly evergreen content that's timeless, and then you can reuse it again and again and again.
Okay. So for example, real case, you're talking about it, because this is our passion, because we do events. So we've got Steve Forbes coming up in New York on December the 6th this year. So we shouldn't be just writing blogs, in this first week of December about, we should.
But I bet you will write blogs in the first week of December, won't you?
I'm sure.
Because there's a pressure.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah.
I suppose it's what should we be doing in November as well. It's the key thing, isn't it?
Well,
you're right. We will.
You will, because there's suddenly a pressure on you, and you're thinking, oh, we've got to write this. Then that's fine. Now, everyone falls victim to this sort of non-perfect behaviour. No one's an angel around here.
Yeah.
But actually, it would be more like when you've got all that content from Steve Forbes, how can you then be reusing that for the rest of the year afterwards? Right. So it goes out. So you could do like 10 things we learned from Steve Forbes, or 5 great quotes from, and then actually after the event, because we're not just talking about doing content just for the sake of promotion.
Right.
We're talking about content for the overall Leaders in brand.
That's it.
So after the event, they can then go out on a rotation pattern and go out again and again and again. They're evergreen, they're timeless. People are always going to read them and share them.
Back onto the big subject of marketing, is there a danger, you think? Because 10 years ago or 15 years ago, everyone was talking about direct mail integrated with fax, integrated with other forms of marketing, email potentially. But now, if you listen to any marketing director or CMO, they're all talking digital, social media. But is there a danger that they're forgetting the integration with the real world, and that you should be integrated with other forms of marketing? Or do you think now that is just old school thinking? It is all social, it is all digital.
What, like, or it's got like other forms of marketing, like direct mail?
Direct mail, telephone marketing, telephone engagement.
Oh, people don't like talking on the phone though, do they?
Well, they don't now, do they?
No,
Not
they
anymore.
don't like talking on the phone. No one wants to answer their phone. If my phone rings, I'm quite freaked out. It's like, what? You're ringing me? You're meant to be texting me or WhatsApping me.
That's right.
No, I mean, it definitely is. It is all about online and social, and I'm sure there's certain sectors such as fashion where they catalogues are still absolutely brilliant, but for most people, you can contain that online. I think the danger is, and what we'll end up asking ourselves, or perhaps slowly killing ourselves, is that businesses, you just can never stop creating content once you've started, and consumers are just bombarded by so much stuff. So I'm sure, as we see already happening with Facebook, this whole idea of people curating more and more what they want to hear from, who they want to hear from, and turning off what they don't want to hear is what's going to happen, because we are all bombarded all the time. Is
there any other trends you see in the world of digital social media that is coming up, that any new...
Well, what about this virtual reality stuff? I mean, I don't know much about it, but now next thing it's going to be, how can you give your customers a virtual reality experience? And the answer to that, I have actually no idea whatsoever, but I'm sure Mark Zuckerberg will be telling us all very soon.
Yeah, well, he bought Oculus Rift, didn't he, for billions, so I'm sure we're going to be finding out about that soon. Let's talk about digital transformation. I've seen on your website, NatashaCourtenay-Smith.com, that you speak a lot about digital transformations, and lots of big companies go through digital transformation, trying to drag people from the old way of thinking to the new way of thinking. In your experience, do they have to change the people to change the people's mindset, or do you think that some of the people who did, for example, MBAs in 1985, they can actually change their mindset and their business models? Oh God,
it probably comes down to the individual, doesn't it?
It's true.
I mean, a lot of digital transformation stuff is literally, it sounds very technical, and as though you're sort of telling people they must immediately launch 1 million apps doing something crazy and getting to virtual reality. But a lot of them is just dragging them out of what century, and now the 21st. So dragging them out of that with updated websites and just some basic systems. You're not talking necessarily about radical change. You're just talking about getting stuff done, getting social media, having a great website, delivering online video, like getting this stuff done properly and consistently, and that can make a real difference.
And there are a lot of consultants charge a fortune for digital transformation, but as you said, it doesn't have to be this big mythical thing.
I know they do, and every time I hear that, I'm like, I need to put my prices up.
But
I don't think it is a mythical thing. There's so many businesses that still have terrible websites, and also another thing is about just looking at what you can do online to add, particularly with a bricks and mortar business or a private healthcare clinic or something that exists in the real world. You want to carry on existing in the real world. No one's telling you that you're suddenly going to shut down this Harley Street clinic and turn it into some sort of app. that's not what it's about. It's about just thinking, actually, can we just get a few more revenue streams coming in from online stuff? Is there anything we can sell? Is there anything we can do online at the same time as what we already do brilliantly via our bricks and mortar business? So it's more about adding to it, and you can only add to it once you get a great site, start doing social media, start creating content, start doing videos, and it's a lot for people to learn. Actually, the technical skills required are a lot for people to learn.
Absolutely, but as you said, with that you get an ability to, even with your Harley Street real world offering, you get an ability to network with your network and truly get their engagement in what you're doing,
and their loyalty, and sell them things online. And I mean, I've got a few private healthcare clinics as clients, which is why I mention them, because I feel it's an area I'm familiar with. But there's a private healthcare clinic is always slightly limited by geography. As in, you'll always get someone who will fly in from America because they've heard about you and they think you're great. But generally, your people are coming from your geographical area because that's just the way it works. They've got to physically get there. So then you're sort of thinking, okay, we're doing a great job for this area. How can we use the internet to reach more people? And that might be through an online course or through products or whatever, but it's not digital transformation. It's a bit like the way people, when they talk about blogging for business, call it content strategy. That's right. I feel it's a kind of hyped up word for the actual phrase, which is, can you use the internet to build your business in any way? That's
right, exactly. And then if you've got the products up there on the site, the whole world could potentially buy your products online. So it's all about scale, isn't it?
And I know we're now kind of trapped on private healthcare clinics, but in the private healthcare clinic world, the people, the doctors and the practitioners are repeating themselves a lot. They say the same thing to every person because people come to them with similar problems. So that actually can be packaged up and sold as a course, particularly the early stages of that process, i.e. initial appointments.
Natasha, we're about to come to the end of this interview, but before we do, I've just got sort of 4 quick fire round questions to sort of ask you. First of all, who is out there, if you could attend any LeadersIn event, or if you could recommend us to interview somebody, who would you most want to hear from? Who do you admire the greatest out there?
Well, you probably want me to come up with some sort of intellectual answer, but I'm very mass market and mainstream. So the person I most admire is Victoria Beckham. I think she's done an amazing job. I know she's kind of ridiculed, but I don't really know why. What I love is her sort of shameless determination and ability to just keep going and move from one role to another and really make a success of herself. I think it's absolutely brilliant. I don't understand why people ridicule her at all.
No, I mean, PwC voted her, I think, in 2016 Entrepreneur of the Year for that year.
And so she should be. I mean, I know people say, well, she's got this fashion brand, but it's all right because, didn't David Beckham transferred 300 grand from his company to her, so it's all sort of fake. It's like, well, all businesses that scale grow with debt for a start. They all need support as they grow, but it's just amazing how someone has gone from Victoria Adams, as she was, to this huge fashion heavyweight. I think it's absolutely brilliant. Absolutely.
And her businesses, I believe, are got great foundations and doing very, very well. So it's like, we were talking about earlier about Stelios Hadjiani. Theoretically, he got £1 million from his father, yes, but he's turned it into a £1 billion airline through EasyJet and Easy Group and everything else. So it's a similar type of thing.
What she meant to do, have the Beckham name and just sit inside and make some cakes? Like, it's ridiculous. She's been, together they've built a kind of brand and they want to keep building on it, and that's absolutely right. Like, I can't think what else she should be doing. Are you meant to have a brand? I mean, it's a huge opportunity. They are, I'm sure, just regular folk in many ways. They have a huge opportunity. Of course they're going to build on it. I think that's human nature, and that comes from being driven. And also that comes from being driven is no matter where you get, it's not enough. So you can tell that with her. No matter where she is, she moves her goalposts forwards, and that's brilliant. That's to be admired.
And that's a trait of all successful people, isn't it? So it is. Just constantly going forward.
And I think people think, well, she should stop because she's got loads of money, she's got a rich husband. It's like, well, why should she stop?
Absolutely, keep driving forward.
Yeah.
So next time you're with the Beckhams, can you please say we'd love to do an interview with them? Yeah, that'd be great. Either one of them or both.
If I see them, I will certainly pass that message on.
I saw the Ali G interview with them both, and that was just that was funny. Okay, second question is, what would you say is the single best piece of online advice you could give us for online success?
So there's a brilliant quote in the book, which is, and I suppose this relates to blogging, but it relates to all online success, which is the only difference between the people who are really successful and those that aren't are the people who are really successful didn't give up. Right. And that reminds me about there's a quote that's similar to marriage, like it was just something like the secret to staying married is to not get divorced or something like that. But basically, what it's saying is that online success is not overnight success, and it's like any business. You work at it over time, and it grows steadily and cumulatively.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really true. And I think with online success and blogging, it does have this huge attraction. It's drawing lots of young people who think this world will give me a quick route to glamour with loads of perks, travel, and being a digital nomad. And that might work for some, but that's not really the reality. Most people will take the same path as you would do with any business, which is you'll grow it steadily and consistently over time.
Yeah. How important do you think it is to sort of constantly innovate in the marketing digital world? And for example, our marketing director to constantly send things up, because nobody knows if it's going to work necessarily, but you've got to take these punts and take these small risks.
Yeah, you definitely have to test things. I mean, there's a couple of girls I've interviewed in the book called Emma and Elsie Chapman, who run an American blog called A Beautiful Mess, which is a multi-million-dollar blog, and they test revenue streams. They'll test 4 or 5 revenue streams each year with the goal that by the end of the year they'll have one revenue stream which will then become a permanent revenue stream and carry over into the next year. And they will test anything. They literally, any idea that they think might work, they'll just test it. 2
last questions. What would you say, we talked about entrepreneurship before, but what would you say is sort of the ideal age for an entrepreneur? Is there an idea, should you drop out from school at the age of 7 or 16, whatever it is? Or should you go and do qualifications, get a few years under your belt? Is the first question on that. And second question is, would you suggest that they do get experience in their industry before? And we talked about that earlier, but do you think that's important, critical almost?
I think, age of an entrepreneur obviously can be any age. I mean, there was a story the other week in the Daily Mail, I've said I'm very tabloidy, I read all these things, about a 13-year-old girl who was making, I think, 40 grand a year. So, I mean, obviously not millions, but she's 13, helping Chinese parents choose Western baby names through her website. Wow. And she'd actually set it up via some sort of algorithm, I think. So they put in one name and it comes back with Sophia or Arabella or whatever. Yeah. So that shows there's no age. And certainly people like Seth Godin, who we've already mentioned, will always talk about that we're living in this really unique age in which anyone can go out and be an entrepreneur using online skills in the online world. But if you want to set up a business that's going to be consulting to big corporations, I think you probably do have to do some actual time so that you've got the credentials and people know that you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, perfect. Final question. In this book, you do talk a lot about how you can be an authority.
Yes.
And how lucrative that is if you can position yourself as the authority in your niche.
Yeah.
So how do you go about doing that in a nutshell?
So I did that with Talk to the Press, which was in the niche of story brokering, where I made myself an authority, and now I'm doing it in the digital niche, which is a different niche in the niche of digital marketing. Yeah. So I think being an authority is firstly just stepping up into that position, even if inside you know that you're not necessary. There's other people out there. Of course there's going to be people who know more than you. Yeah. That's not what it's about. It's about stepping forward, having an opinion. So you have to look the part, act the part, you have to create content, you have to be opinionated, you have to have true expertise or you'll get caught out. But part of it is just being willing to do it and understanding that if you do it, you will get rewards from doing that. Yeah. And then there's all sorts of things you can do as credibility indicators, such as writing a book, doing public speaking, giving a TED talk, getting an OBE or whatever. These are all stamps of credibility, and once you've got those things, writing articles, getting printed, once you've got those things, you must promote back that you've got that, like, hey, did you see my article I wrote, blah blah blah, because that's actually, it's not about the article itself on the day it appeared, it's about the long-term value of the fact that you're a printed writer in your field. Yeah,
perfect. As a printed writer in your field and as the world authority in this area.
Yes, I'm the world authority.
You are, Natasha. Natasha Courtenay-Smith, on behalf of all of our viewers today, I just want to say thank you so much for being an honour.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.